Well, good morning. My name is Peter Mackenzie-Bourne. I'm the Solutions Architect here at Silver Lining Convergence. Thank you all for attending this morning. I'm going to take up about 15-20 minutes of your time to discuss two critical aspects of data security that I feel is paramount for user education. There's a number of cybersecurity elements that I won't go into too much detail on, so I'm going to tackle two this morning. And obviously there'll be a Q&A session at the end, and obviously an email address where you can contact us for any further information and anything that I've spoken about this morning. So as a starting point, the world of cybersecurity is a very kind of wide topic. However, all businesses and non-commercial users, personal users, encounter issues with online security. You've probably heard yourselves about the recent compromises for the NHS, in which a number of critical trusts had a ransomware attack. TalkTalk also had a number of different router attacks on their business customers and personal customers, where an attacker found a way of gaining access to their equipment on site and on businesses. The PlayStation Network from a couple of years ago, where a large amount of credit card details were stolen and compromised. Now, each of us in a business context and a personal context have got kind of a civic responsibility to protect our data and our reputation when using the internet. That aligns to obviously our individual businesses' goals, as well as our own awareness about what's happening when we're utilizing the internet, how our data is becoming accessible to other people. Now, overall, the biggest flaw to all business and personal data is us, is humans. Now, I chose this infographic because I thought it quite fitting. With the evolution of technology as it is at the moment, we're forever kind of catching up, and we're forever battling against the latest developments in technology. And I'm a proponent and an advocate for ensuring that people are educated just at a base level around cybersecurity. But that's the biggest flaw in the plan is us themselves. So this is the first two things that I'm going to talk about this morning. Many of you may or may not have heard of ransomware. Now, the purpose of ransomware basically is to gain access to an individual user or a business's files and encrypt them using a program that's delivered normally via email or via a website. Now, this can look like a pretty standard email, saying that there's a normal attachment for something you might be expecting. And this systematically encrypts all the data on a file server or on a local user's laptop or a computer workstation, rendering them unusable until you pay the ransom in an anonymous currency called Bitcoin, which you also may have heard of. Now, this is Rife Ransomware. It started off in 2014, and there's been various different derivations of the same ilk, effectively. The general gist is that there is a payload, almost like a virus, effectively. It's delivered to a user or a business user, and then at the end of the encryption, where all the files become unusable, there's a little note that's left on the screen to indicate that your files have been encrypted. Please pay X amount to the hackers to recover this data, but there's no guarantees that data is recoverable. And these things are sent out as almost like marketing mail shots, effectively, trying to get anyone at all to pay a ransom, and they don't care whether the data is recovered or not. There was a total of 56,000 or thereabouts ransomware attacks in mid-2016. The number is growing. You've probably seen from the BBC website, from the Register, that there's been a number of recent attacks in 2017 using a new strain of ransomware. So this is very much a very current issue, and it's easily avoidable with a couple of aspects of user education at minimal cost. Just as an example, 48% of global companies have stated that they have been affected either directly or indirectly from a ransomware attack. Their files have been compromised. There's been 12 affections across us here at Silver Lining clients in the last year. In each case, we refused to pay the ransom, and the backup that we take daily and during the course of the day was restored with minimal damage to the end user. As I stated earlier on, quite worryingly, 1 in 3 NHS trusts across the UK have been attacked by ransomware, and this has resulted in cancelled operations, which obviously I don't need to explain the severity of that particular attack. In most cases, there was kind of minimal backup, and the general consensus, even though not publicly stated, is that a ransom was paid for some of the trusts for some successful recoveries. Very, very recently, I think it was at the end of January, the St. Louis Public Library recovered from backup. They didn't pay, but they obviously had a total outage of all their systems. And again, worryingly, the Little Red Door Cancer Charity were extorted for a $44,000 ransom. Again, they recovered from backup. So I think that's the key point here, is that if it does happen, we need to ensure that appropriate backup methodologies are already in place. Well, let's discuss a bit about what it looks like. You know, what the characteristics of a payload, as I call it, look like for ransomware, and potentially give you the tools to recognize these as they come in, so you can avoid an infection within your business or indeed at home. Again, this happens to home users and business users alike. No one is safe. So if we look at the two examples we've got here, these are real-world examples. On the left-hand side, we have an attempt to deliver a ransomware payload using a quite innocuous-looking Excel file. This is an XLSM file. On the right-hand side, we've got a more kind of end-user personal email based on a shipping confirmation from FedEx. Now, in both these cases, both these payloads contain ransomware viruses, effectively, or ransomware payloads. Now, what's interesting about both of these is they look quite innocuous. They are leveraging something called social engineering and natural human curiosity to kind of make you open or make you want to see what's within that attachment, and that's the critical point here, and that's what the hackers and the people that produce this particular virus, they concentrate on. They concentrate on the idea of encouraging you to open that attachment, whether it be for attachments that apparently you've requested, for the example on the left-hand side, or indeed with a shipping confirmation. We're thinking, what have I ordered? I don't remember ordering anything from FedEx, or maybe it's something expensive. Maybe it's something that I need to send back. You know, so these are two very real-world, very recent examples of how the payloads can be delivered. And this is effectively what happens. This is a very typical example of a systematic encryption of all the files on a user's machine. On a company share. So this could be finance data, this could be payroll data, this could be your entire HR drive, this could be your entire management accounts drive. I've seen it before. On the right-hand side, the files themselves, once that payload is opened, I mean, I'll just hop back quickly to the previous slide. This XLSM payload, it's an Excel file with macros enabled, and that's what kicks off the infection. So you open up the Excel file. Obviously, I'm not going to give you an example here. And it delivers a virus. The encrypted files are often suffixed with something like .encrypted or .locky or .mp3 in some cases, changing the characteristics of the file, and this happens to everything: Word documents, Excel documents, PDF files, everything. It ends up as a .encrypted file. And once the files have been encrypted, on the left-hand side, you see the ransom note. It appears on your screen, either as an HTML web page or as a notepad file. saying at the moment the cost of private key for decrypting your files is 2.5 Bitcoin. Now that has gone up significantly now. That's about $2,000 for the amount that's stated there. And these hackers provide a unique address on the dark web where you purchase a coin, you purchase the currency, and you pay them via anonymous currency. And they may or may not give you the tools to decrypt all the files for your business or on your local machine. So that was briefly about ransomware. The overarching idea is to deliver a payload in an innocuous email or website to encourage you to open the virus and to systematically encrypt your files with an aim to recover a ransom, to extort money out of a business. Depending on how critical those files are, a lot of people pay. The other aspect I wanted to talk about this morning was phishing. This is something you've probably come across. It's a term you've probably heard. In this case, attackers are attempting to gain access to either personal or business information via email or websites. The term comes from going phishing for usernames and passwords by impersonating genuine sites, or social engineering, as I've mentioned before, within the ransom attack. So this could be an Amazon website, this could be your local SharePoint intranet or your company intranet, this could be your CRM system. Hackers are getting very, very good at creating these sites to look very similar to something you would use on a day-to-day basis. So you don't think twice about entering your username, entering your password, and at that point they capture your username and login information and use that to either extract information from your business or extract credit card details, extract payment details. There's been a 250% increase in phishing websites over the last year, including a worrying trend called CEO phishing. Now, CEO phishing is quite an interesting user education point because people are impersonating managing directors, people are impersonating business decision makers and encouraging employees within the business to hand over information either directly to the CEO, as I mentioned in inverted commas, or to a third party. Now, obviously, that's a good point and a good tactic from a hacker's point of view because you're impersonating someone in a position of authority, and people within a business will believe that. They will, without a second guess, rush to provide that piece of information to the CEO. A couple of examples of what's happening in the phishing world today. On the left-hand side here, I can almost guarantee that one or more of you have received an example of this from PayPal, saying that you've made a payment to a particular company, in this case €489, which is a substantial amount of money that you forget to have spent on for a Samsung Galaxy S7. Now, this email looks relatively innocuous. It looks very typical of what PayPal would send out as a confirmation, and it's encouraging people to log in to PayPal and provide their PayPal login details to obviously correct the purchase that you didn't make. I didn't order a phone. Where's this €500 going to? On the top right hand side is an example of a CEO phishing email that we can see. Hi Timothy, please, I will need you to take care of a financial obligation for me today. It's interesting looking at the language of that email. It seems a bit grammatically incorrect. That's a point I'll come on to in a minute. What is the required information needed for you to process a wire transfer? And this is being spoofed. So this is from Tom Kemp, who I'm assuming is a CEO or managing director from Centrify, being sent to Tim Steinkopf, who's obviously an employee within the business who might have this information. And this is a very good way of social engineering that information out for a wire transfer. In the bottom right-hand corner here, we can see an example of another phishing attack from Stanford University. Again, a real-world one. This is not a mock-up. The update your account encourages you to click here to put in a username and password for the Stanford University and intranet effectively, again gaining access to this. So we can see three examples here. One, a more personal kind of non-business user phishing attack that's encouraging you to bring the username and password into a hacker's database. On the top right-hand side, we can see a more business-based CEO phishing attack, and on the bottom right, we can see a Stanford University example where people are being encouraged to create login details. I can see we've had a couple more people join us. Thank you for joining this morning.
Good morning, thanks.
So, we've talked a bit about the ransomware element of attacks, which, for those of you who have just joined, are based on the social engineering encouragement of people to open up attachments in emails or attachments from websites and deliver a payload to systematically encrypt a company's data or a personal user's data from financial records, from HR records, for the purpose of extorting money, effectively. There's been some major attacks recently, and the attacks are growing. I've also talked briefly about phishing, which is something you've probably encountered in your sort of business day-to-day use, as well as personally, which involves people trying to not extort, but capture your login details or capture authentication details, credit card details, for the purposes of using them for nefarious purposes. So what can we do about it? Now, because the attacks are growing ever more complex in nature, the technology companies, the creators of firewalls and antivirus and anti-ransomware, are forever playing catch up with the latest versions of the attack that are coming out. So one useful way of kind of mitigating these attacks is to make sure that your local antivirus and local kind of firewall versions of firmware are as fully up to date as possible. Interestingly, there is some kind of thieves' cant between the ransomware kind of makers, effectively, where if a machine or a server or a business file server has been infected, it won't attempt to reinfect it, basically, or recognize that there's been encrypted files on there. So there's been a recent development from MIT, software that I can provide individual details of, that allows you to almost pre-infect your machine and place a honeypot file on a file server or local user's machine, so ransomware can't kick off its systematic process of infection. Another way, which is paramount, is email scanning. So there's a number of different providers that allow, as well as anti-spam, which I'm sure you're all familiar with, allows email flowing through the servers to be scanned and analyzed for the presence of payloads, so like the XLSM file I mentioned earlier on, and it will block them or will advise the user, you've had a suspected encrypted file or a suspected ransomware attack file attached to this email, so here it is, you're at your own leisure to open it or block it. As I discussed earlier on, I mean, the majority of companies and businesses, the NHS Trust, TalkTalk, Silver Lining ourselves, backup. We have to ensure that we've got appropriate and regular backup methodologies in place of our server infrastructure, of our local machines, of our phones, because this is affecting phones as well now, to ensure that if you do get encrypted, I mean, anyone can fall foul of opening up a seemingly innocuous email. And what we tend to advise our clients, and obviously provide ourselves, is the facility to back up and restore very, very quickly. And most importantly, and I'm a total advocate for this, is user education. All it takes is, I'll just hop back to one of the examples that I mentioned earlier on surrounding ransomware. So all it takes is 5 seconds just to have a look at these emails and think, is this email trying to get me to open this attachment? Am I recognizing where it's from? Is it using social engineering? Just take 5 seconds to look at it, look at where it's from. Is it from an unrecognised email address or an unusual email address? Is the language in it unusual? Is it short and to the point, or is it something you are genuinely expecting? Make sure that you take those 5 seconds just to go, hang on, and have that element of healthy doubt about it. That's the most important point, because all this wonderful technology, these intrusion protection mechanisms, can be all for naught effectively, unless you're encouraging your internal users and you're spreading the user education as to, make sure you're aware about this email. Is it genuine? It only takes 5 seconds. It costs nothing, as opposed to a very expensive restore from backup. So, am I expecting this email? Is it from somewhere, something, or someone that I recognise? Check the sources. If in doubt, phone the company up. Phone PayPal up. Say, I've had this email for a transaction I don't recognise. Did I order a phone? Did I order a Samsung Galaxy S7 for €489? Is it encouraging me via natural human curiosity to open the email? One of the most recent infections in Bournemouth University involved a CV. This is a Word file, a docx file, that contained a payload for a CV for your attention. So again, it's leveraging natural human curiosity to open it. Just take 5 seconds. That's all it takes to just have that healthy element of doubt. We'll talk a little bit about how silver lining conversions can kind of assist in the exercise of ensuring that your business data is safe. I won't go into too much detail, but we offer a number of services surrounding consultancy on security. I myself are quite able to provide webinars and local user education and training for your business. We have local and remote cloud backup that we use ourselves to ensure that if there is an attack that's compromised users on our hosted platform, or indeed the customers that we take care of locally on site. We have expertise within intrusion prevention. We can advise you on how best to update your local infrastructure to ensure that you're as up to date as possible to keep up with what these guys are attempting to do. We can also offer enterprise email scanning and enterprise web filtering. Both are critical for businesses in 2017 to ensure that you're mitigating these at what we call the edge level before they get into your business, basically. One of the services that we do provide here at Silver Lining is the Revolution Cloud Platform. This is a breakthrough cloud platform in multiple data centers that have multi-site resiliency. We specialize in hosted exchange, hosted desktop, hosted backup, hosted applications, and home worker connections. One of the main pain points for my clients is to take the ownership, take the administrative care outside of their local infrastructure and move it into the Revolution Cloud or a cloud platform such as the one that we have here, to ensure that those enterprise email scanning mechanisms, those enterprise web filtering mechanisms are available and managed by a third party. So thank you very much for your time this morning. Again, my name is Peter Mackenzie-Bourne. I'm a solutions architect here at Silver Lining. I think the biggest thing that I would like our attendees to take away from this webinar today is that 5-second rule. Just take 5 seconds and encourage your colleagues, your family, your friends to kind of share instances where they've seen an email pop up on their phone. Look, this was from PayPal. They tried to get me to enter my login details, and kind of highlight the awareness within the people that you speak to on a day-to-day basis